Well, welcome to another episode of the Business's Mission podcast. I am here with an old friend, Bob Bush, the director of IBEC Ventures, and also a partner with me, and also Dick Widener in the work of TriVenture. We call it the BAM Launchpad. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. But Bob, first of all, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Hey, Mike, anytime I get a chance to meet with you, talk about Jesus and business's mission, it's a great day. So yeah, it's good
And
to be here.
Tennessee football,
And
don't
Tennessee
forget.
football, absolutely.
Good. Well, Bob is my partner. We work together in several different ventures, all connected to business's mission around the world. And so we could spend a ton of time catching up, but I want to get right into our content as Bob updates us. Bob, just for the sake of our listeners, give just a real quick thumbnail on IBEC,
Yeah.
and then I'll have more specific questions, but there are a few that are listening like, what is IBEC Ventures? We don't know. So tell us what it is, and then we'll get into how it actually works and where you're going.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, this is great, Mike. So IBEC Ventures. So IBEC started back in 2006. And so we've been providing coaching, consulting, subject matter expertise in the business's mission world for, I guess, the last 18 years. Certainly don't pretend to have all the answers, but we've learned a lot. We've learned just how difficult it is and how valuable a coach can be. But what's really beautiful, I think, about what's happened is that we've been able to tap into, and I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there that are listening to this that can certainly relate to this, because I think you and I can both relate to it on a personal level, is that we've tapped into a talent pool that, men and women who love Jesus and they love business. And I think in our country, there's certainly exceptions to this statement, but at an aggregate level, I think we do a pretty poor job of protecting our talent. When you look across the board, a lot of men and women who are, in their 50s or a little bit older than that, they kind of get pushed out of these companies and they're not ready to go. And so we've tapped into those individuals who are on the sidelines. And so I guess my first, request out there is that if you're listening to this today and you're on the sidelines, get in the game. Contact Mike or myself, because it's just an amazing opportunity to be able to serve Christ in a role where you really believe you can bring value to the folks that you work with. And so we've got about 30 to 35 of these individuals who just, they roll up their sleeves, they get involved, they love what they're doing. And we work with, close to 50 businesses all over the world. And these are businesses that are looking for somebody to come alongside them. Sometimes it may be as simple as providing hope and encouragement and just someone to talk to. But there's a lot of other things that we bring to the table as well. And so, the areas that just kind of jump out for me are areas like finance and sales and marketing and operations, engineering, human resources, kind of the whole gamut. I mean, everybody out there's got a gift. And our job is to really tap into that gift and match it up with folks who need our help. So that's a little bit about IBEC. Yeah.
So I love it. And Bob, it's the history of it, by the way. One of our current partners, Larry Sharp,
Yep.
was the original director of IBEC back when it began. And it's amazing to watch how you've led it and the way you say 50 companies around the world. Um, I don't know where Third Path would be without IBEC to work with our graduates from the courses and to give them that coaching. So talk about the coaching you do. You mentioned sales and marketing. What's the philosophy of coaching? What do you guys actually do? So somebody, whether they go through Third Path or not, they could still be an IBEC client. Many of your clients, came to you on their own, or you met them at a conference or whatever. So somebody engages with you.
Mm-hmm.
What are they looking for? What do you see that they need, and what does IBEC do about that?
Yeah, great question, Mike. I think, the beauty of being around for 18 years is you get to know a lot of people. You and I've had that luxury, networking and just getting out there and kind of in the trenches and finding out, who needs our help. And so a lot of the folks come to us. So when that happens, I think what we do, and really, I think we've gotten pretty darn good at it over the years, is we really have to make sure that we're going to provide value for these clients. So it's not just a matter of, in fact, in all honesty, I mean, in some cases we have to say no because it just isn't going to be a good fit. What they're looking for and what we provide might not be a good fit. But So when I say, is it a good fit or not, what are we looking for? We're really looking for a business, a practitioner, a founder who really wants to do four. There's got to be four boxes that are checked. We call it the quadruple bottom line, but it's more than just, bullet points on a PowerPoint. It's really got to be lived and breathed. It's got to be the DNA of the company, the DNA of the practitioner. And so what we're looking for is a business that's focused on sustainability. It's got to be a real business. Okay, that's the first thing. The second is, we know that job creation, especially where you and I've been in the world, it's really hard to tell people about Jesus when kids are starving to death and young women are being trafficked out of villages. I mean, this is the reality of the places that we work. So we got to create jobs. And so the first thing we've got to do is get in there and create economic development and really build and grow these communities by creating jobs. So that's kind of the second thing. The third is, we're not just Christians running businesses. So we're not just looking for Christians who are just running a business and kind of showing up. We're really looking for Christians who go to work with an intentionality and they really go in each
Yeah.
and every day and say, you know what, Lord, take my blinders off. How do I make disciples for you in the workplace? I'm going to be doing all these things out in the community. And that's a lot of companies do that, which is great. But what am I doing within the four walls of my business to glorify you and to make disciples for you? So that's the third thing that's really important. And then the stewardship piece, and when we think of good stewardship, I mean, there's environmental stewardship, there's financial stewardship, there's the people resource stewardship. What we look at is everything is God's. It's not just one thing, or, we're going to kind of cherry pick what we think is applicable to our business. It's that we recognize that everything is His. And so our coaches are really good at every single call that we have with businesses. We never leave those calls without talking about how is God being glorified in the business. And so this is His business. What are we seeing God do in that business? How do we recognize that it's His business? And we never want to get over to the business side of the ledger and not focus on the ministry side. And so I think that those are the things that we really try to focus on.
So I'm curious, Bob, when you've got somebody that approaches you, and let's say they have not come through the TriVenture course, the third path courses,
Yeah.
because they would be more versed with these things before they came to you. But when they come to you, they don't understand all of this. Do you turn them away? What do you work? Do you take them in and try to coach them from where they are to where they need to be? What do
Yeah,
you do?
yeah, that's another great question. I think um, we have to be careful about saying no. Sometimes the answer may be not yet, and we just want to. I think we spend a lot of time on the front end before there's ever an engagement, because we really owe that to the client. We really want to make sure that if we're going to bring value to that client, that we really understand what their needs are. And so, that's the first thing, is really kind of peeling back the layers and getting to know them and spend as much time on the front end as we possibly can. I can tell you that anybody that comes that comes to me or to us as a team and is looking to start a business, they haven't done this particular business before. They're really looking at really the nuts and bolts of starting the business. I take them right to TriVenture. And you and I have been doing TriVenture now since 2019, when we launched it in Romania, and that is the combination of courses, your courses, coaching, and capital. There's nothing else out there like it. And so anybody that's a startup business, even if they've run another business before, but this is a new venture, we take them right into TriVenture. And we've launched a lot of businesses through TriVenture that would have never been launched any other way. Now, if it's a more seasoned business and they need a coach, a lot of times what they're looking for is they may be looking for raising capital. They may be looking for connections with investors. We certainly have those connections. But a lot of times they're looking for really somebody to come alongside and give them an opportunity to crystallize their strategy and really match it up with their operational plan. And as you know, it's one of the biggest reasons for failure out there is just the lack of an executional plan. It's a plan that the strategy is great. Where I'm going to be in 3, 5, 7 years is right out there. I mean, everything looks good, but what am I doing on Monday to sell more than I spend? And so it's really bringing that tactical piece and really having somebody to to hold them accountable. And the beauty of IBEC is that every one of our engagements, it's a one-on-one coach. And so if you and I are working together, I'm accountable to you, you're accountable to me. And so, we really build that relationship right from the start. And I can tell you, most of the folks that we work with, we've been with for a long time. And so that relationship is key.
So, Bob, you and I've talked for years
Yeah.
about this. You're very fond of saying, "Don't try to do this alone."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the value of a coach. And the same thing is true. I mean, in U.S. business or Western business. I mean, it's true anywhere in the world. But I think it's got to be much truer, if you can say that, or more intensely true
Yeah.
when you're trying to do business as mission in either a developing country.
Yeah.
You're a national. You're Indian in India, or you're Colombian in the mountains of Colombia,
Yeah.
whatever. Um, but then if you're an expat, let's say you're from Brazil, but you want to do business in you know Togo.
Yeah.
uh, That's a that's 10 times harder.
Oh yeah.
So when your coach looks at this, I mean, I get the idea of the executional plan. Totally agree with that. But then I think about just the value of having another brother or sister
Yeah.
walk with you from where you are to where you're going. That's just an amazing thing. It reminds me of the old, I guess it's an African proverb, says if you want to go fast, go alone. If
Yeah.
you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And that's really, IBEC is about going far and lasting and building a sustainable business with long-term impact.
Yeah.
What do people say? 'Cause, and the lead up to this question should have been a lot of BAM practitioners, whether they're nationals or
Hmm.
whether they're expats, they're coming from a place where they're very much pioneers. They're loners.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
almost wired to be out there alone, and they struggle because of that. Talk to that just a little bit, Bob. Then when we'll finish this question, take a quick break, and then come back because I've got a lot more questions for you.
Yeah. No, I think that's, and it's one of the things that happens, and I'll just kind of focus on that expat, kind of lead up to this, the expat who's going over to a country. One of the things that we want to make sure before we ever flip the switch and start a business is, do we understand the culture and do we speak the language? Because so many of these businesses, they get over to an area, they kind of don't know what they're signing up for. And then all of a sudden it's just really tough. I mean, you and I both know. I mean, we're not going to sugarcoat this. This is tough stuff. I mean, it's tough to start a business in the United States, and you go overseas, and there's factors that you just take for granted over here that you've got to deal with over there. And so we really try to understand, is this an area that they, quote, kind of call home? Is this an area that they've been before? Is it an area that they understand the culture and the people around them? And is their family bought in? I mean, that's a huge factor. Is the family bought in? And so let's say that all of those kind of boxes are checked, so to speak, and it feels like it's the right fit. Now what we've got to do is we've got to tap into some of the other resources. We have a lot of businesses in a lot of parts of the world where we can team them up with others that are right there on the ground with them. And so sometimes when you have that brother or sister that's going through the same thing at a local level, and you've got that connection, a lot of these folks don't know anybody where they're at, and we're always connecting them with other businesses that we're working with. And so building that camaraderie at a local level, I think, is really key. I also think that we've got to really understand, if we're focusing on sustainability, we've got to focus on, is there a demand for a product or service? Does the product or service meet that demand? And then does that local market have the ability to pay for the product or service and cover my costs? And that third piece of it, a lot of times, is the piece that's missing. And so now, how can we help them with a supply chain that gets their product or service into an area where they can actually sell it and build a real business where they now can create jobs and do the things that they want to do for Christ? But you've really got to understand that market, and we've got to help them understand what they're signing up for before they flip the switch and start the business. And then once they do, how do we give them as much support as possible so they can be successful?
People love stories. So tell us a couple of your most, I don't know, you decide your best. We don't want to hear the worst, but what are your stories? Couple of your clients, you go, this guy really got it, or this young lady really picked it up and ran with it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, we've had so many incredible blessings, working with the folks that we work with. But the beauty of IBEC, and I feel, I just get excited about this, is that we don't discriminate. We work with folks at one end of the continuum that are startup businesses in real tough areas, like through TriVenture that you and I have been part of, and launched a lot of those businesses that, quite frankly, no one would touch. And we also work at the other end where we're raising capital for businesses that are looking for $500,000 or more. So we kind of and everywhere in between. And so when I think of but the beauty of IBEC is we spend as much effort and time on the folks who are at the the end of the spectrum where they're trying to raise maybe say $10,000 versus $500,000. And there's one young gentleman that just this guy is just been such a blessing to me. I started working with him. He was able to secure capital about a year ago, but it took me about a year, Mike, to get him to the point where we could actually get him in front of the investors. Now, he's in Tanzania, really tough area, and he wanted to start this business, and he was looking for a $10,000 loan, and nobody would give it to him. There was no way that he was going to secure this loan unless he found something like TriVenture. So we put him through TriVenture, where we focus on the lean canvas, where we focus on an executive summary for investors, where we did multiple pitch deck rehearsals and got him ready for his pitch. And he went in front of the investors and he just hit it out of the park. So he secures this $10,000, which for a lot of folks, we hear $10,000 and we're like, that's great, but what can you do with $10,000? Well, you know what this guy did with $10,000? He went and he hired 4 young men. He started a soap business. He's got this business up and running. In the first 6 months, his profit was over $10,000. He started to pay back his loan. In fact, I just talked to him earlier in the week. He's preaching this weekend in 2 outside villages.
Wow.
And he came to Colorado, and I met with him and his wife, and they came here to meet with a ministry, and I shot down there and met with him. And I'm telling you, this guy, I mean, I feel like 99% of the blessing has come to me, and we just happen to be part of this $10,000 loan, but it's changing that community. And so you've got that story at that end. So anybody who's out there who can relate to that, reach out to TriVenture, because these are the kind of businesses that we're changing, that we're using to really change the world, and that we're part of to help change the world.
Bob, I've got it. Before you tell the next story, I got to jump in there and just make a point here, because you and I talk a lot about this, that so much of the capital that purports to be available to the BAM movement, they're so cautious, they're so thorough that nobody out there in the real world can qualify. That sounds terrible, and I'm overstating it to make the point, because there are, and the other is it's large, and so therefore I understand caution. If you're gonna invest $100,000 or $500,000, I get that.
Yeah.
But most of what you and I've seen in the business's mission movement around the world for the last 30 years is still small business.
Yeah.
And that $10,000, which sounds like chicken change to us, that's a lot of money in most countries.
Yeah.
And you could do a lot with it. And so the fact that you say, coming to you because you can represent them to a $10,000 investor or a $15,000 investor, I think is absolutely vital in this equation. All right, so you're going to tell. So that's a great story. I love the fact that you did it. You were there. You're still there with him, and we're going to see some amazing things. You started to tell another story, and that's why I jumped in. I just wanted to make that point, because I do want potential investors in our audience to think not necessarily about risking $500,000. Think about risking $25,000.
Exactly.
And the difference it can make is still huge.
Exactly. And the beauty of that is it's an investment. I mean, this is a real business. This is a business that is focused on the quadruple bottom line. They're focused on sustainability. We go through their numbers every month, and it's a serious business, and it's impacting those lives in Tanzania. At the other end of the spectrum, I had an opportunity. This probably goes back, Mike, about 7-8 years ago. I met 2 young men that went over to Uganda, and they wanted to address a countrywide issue, which was the deforestation problem with charcoal. All these trees were getting decimated. So long story short, these guys, they purchased some land. and they started to look at efficient ways that they could address this issue, really with kind of the country in mind. And then as they got there, they realized that they started meeting the farmers, that they started living and breathing this problem at the farmer level. And they have got thousands of farmers now that are part of this program that are now looking at efficient ways. The company's called Kijani Forestry. I mean, they're unbelievable. They've got I think over 600 employees. And it's an amazing business. And we were able to get them into the Lion's Den in Birmingham a few years back as one of the finalists. And, God has blessed them for their obedience. I look at these young, you and I talk about it all the time. I mean, there's young men and women out there today that we need to get them into the BAM game, right? We got to get them in. And when I've had an opportunity to be part of what these guys are doing and seeing the impact, they now have a BAM accelerator in Gulu, as kind of, in fact, one of the, Quinn Neely is his name. His wife runs this accelerator. It's just had this domino effect. But this is a business that's at the other end of the spectrum. But, and everywhere in between, we really try to give everybody everything that we have and really try to make a difference for their particular situation. But those are two stories that just immediately come to mind for me, because they're different, but they're beautiful because they're really changing lives for Christ.
Well, the fun for me in that, Bob, is that you always try to tee some of these guys up to be guests on the podcast. So I got to interview the guys from Kijani. I've got to interview some of the other folks that are getting it done, and their stories are amazing. So I'll say to you what I always say: keep them coming, man. I love it. So you mentioned something special that you wanted to get into in this conversation about what IBEC is launching in Brazil.
Yeah.
It is not your normal way of doing things. It's something new and different and obviously exciting. So tell us what IBEC is doing in Brazil. And by the way, for those of you who aren't familiar with Brazil, other than knowing it's a big country in South America, Bob and I will both tell you, because we were just down there
Yep.
together, God is doing amazing things in the Christian business community of Brazil. And it is all around business's mission. They are getting it. They are running with it. They are really global in their thinking. So that's the preamble to what you're going to tell us about what you're excited about in Brazil.
Well, it's amazing how this even happened. I'll just kind of take you through the steps real quickly. Larry Sharp, you mentioned Larry. Larry writes a blog every Monday. For those of you out there who don't get our blog, I would go into the website. You could sign up for it. It's tremendous. He showcases businesses and businesses' mission issues. Well, he got a call from a young guy down in Brazil who read the blog, and Larry said, kind of met with him and said, he introduced him to me. So he hands him over to me, and I get to know this guy. Well, this amazing young guy. He's a CEO of a software company down there. Just loves Jesus. Great business guy. Really wanted to jump into the business's mission, swimming pool right in the deep end, and really wanted to be part of IBEC as a client. And so then Jonathan Brake, who's a good friend of ours, Mike, he becomes his coach, and the guy's name is Danilo. And Danilo starts working with us for probably 3 or 4 years. And then this last year, reaches out to me and he says, man, IBEC has changed my life. I'm looking at my business totally different. I'm networking now. I'm meeting other people I didn't even know were out there. They started BAM Brazil, as you mentioned. And I'd like to do more. I'd really like to do more for IBEC. What can I do? And I said, well, Danilo, being a coach immediately comes to mind. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, you bring so much to the table here, but I think God wants us to do more. And so what we did is we identified him as the BAM ambassador for IBEC down in Curitiba in Brazil. The foundation was in place, and as you mentioned, it's just taken off. You and I were going to a conference in May, and so what we said is, if we really are going to grow in these areas, continue to grow in these areas like Brazil and other areas all over the world, we really have to build from within. And that's what Danilo and some of the other folks are doing down there, Samara and what have you. And so what we did is we came in, we trained local coaches, we identified local businesses. Right now we've got 4 businesses that are up and running with IBEC. We've got about 7 or 8.
Wait a minute, Bob. Wait a minute. This is just too biblical,
Okay.
right? The idea of teaching faithful men who will be able to teach others also. That sounds like something out of Second Timothy 2:2.
Yeah. No,
That you're actually disciple making and they're disciple making.
yeah.
Is that what you're
Yeah. We
doing?
didn't. We kind of stole this one, I think. But I'll tell you, when you see it work, Mike, and so now Danilo's the point person. He's the ambassador. We've got local businesses. We've got local coaches. Our goal in this next year is we're going to have 12 Brazilian coaches up and running. As you know, they all speak Portuguese. You have to speak Portuguese really down there. Our goal is to have 20 to 25 BAM businesses located right there in Brazil. And we're looking at other parts of the world that we want to go into. So this center of excellence idea is really a very simple one. It's we can only do so much from here, and we're going to continue to work as hard as we can to do that. But we've got to build from within. We've got to get these folks. We've got to, if we can be part of the train the trainer, so to speak, we want to help them as much as we can, but then we want to be able to hand it off to them and watch it grow. And that's what we're seeing happening right now in Brazil. And so I'm excited about where we're going after this.
I was gonna say, Bob, that's exciting because you and I've been going to Brazil for the last 14 years. I love it there, and I've watched God work from almost nothing to
Yeah.
really a booming ecosystem. But now to see them, the members of that ecosystem, taking this on, not just to do the work themselves among themselves, but to be thinking internationally. And now, of course, IBEC Ventures is thinking about what country do we replicate this in?
That's right.
This new
Yep.
model of just thinking about centers of excellence. I love that. The business guy in me just wakes up when I hear that term.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing. All right, so Bob, last question, last official question. I always have one more at the end for you, but last official question. You've got a great perspective on the global BAM movement. You've been involved for 20 plus years. Uh, your work takes you all over the world. You talk with folks all over the world. Your connection is amazing. Your network is amazing. So from that perspective, seeing, I think, the big picture, probably better than many. What do you see coming up in the next 12 months or so? I'm not asking you to predict the total future, but just when you're looking kind of a little bit around the corner, what do you see? What excites you? What invites you? And also, I guess I could say kind of what scares you a little bit
Mm,
or worries you.
yeah. Well, what's happening right now, I think, in the world is unlike anything we've ever seen before. I think there's over 280 million people right now who live in a country other than the one they were born in. So you've got this tremendous movement everywhere, right? And our focus at IBEC has always been, our sweet spot has always been the 1040 window. That's where we feel like God has called us. He's called us to the tough areas of the world. And we still do that. I mean, that's where we go. However, there are areas outside that corridor that need our help. And places like Eastern Europe, which, Mike, you and I have been to Eastern Europe. We know what's going on in Romania. We know how God is just doing amazing things there, down in Brazil, other parts as well. So I would say the one that really opened my eyes recently is, we've got a lot going on right here in the United States. Down in, a good example is down in Clarkston, Georgia. Clarkston is
Hmm.
often referenced as the most diverse square mile in America. And I got a call from a young guy who wanted to start a tea business down there, right in the heart of this mile. And so we've come alongside him to help him really build and grow this business. And it was just a confirmation on, and you and I talk about this all the time, is that we don't have to go to the ends of the earth to see where God needs our help, to see where these businesses need our help. I think that there are, I've got another gentleman that I'm working with down in Texas who's got a model that's going to change the school system down there. And the immigrant population has provided this opportunity for us to bring business's mission right into our own community. And so
Hmm.
that's where I see. So I think there's a lot of people out there right now. Like I said at the beginning, my prayer here today is really for men and women to say, you know what, it's time for me to get in the game. I got to get a hold of Mike. I got to get a hold of Bob. They can connect me with the people. Here's what I want to do, and let's help them do it. But there's also business opportunities for us to bring Christ into businesses right down the street. We don't have to say, well, you know what, I'm not going to go overseas. It's really not my calling, but I'll give to the church, and here's my check, and I'm kind of done. And no, it doesn't work that way. There's people right here who need our help. And so my answer to your question is really pretty simple. We have to take the blinders off at a local level. BAM is everywhere in the world. There's opportunities all over the world for us to change these communities through business, to bring him into these communities by creating jobs, and to build excellent companies that reflect Jesus. And it may be in the 1040 window, but it may be right down the street, And I think that's what excites me about it.
I'm with you, Bob. I look at this, and I could take a rabbit trail on this, but just to make the point that the 1040 window is coming to all of us, and not just in America. You and I both live in the U.S., and so we have a particular perspective. But when you go to Brazil, or when you go to Colombia, or when you go to Romania, or wherever, the UK, I mean, a lot of our listeners are in Australia. The world is coming to your doorstep. It doesn't mean that people should not still leave home and go to another country and live. I mean, if that's what God leads you to do, that's all that matters. But it does mean that there's a lot more opportunity for those of us who are not called to leave hearth and home, so to speak. There's a lot more opportunity for us to still be involved in global discipleship, international discipleship. And when you see people from Afghanistan, or you see people from Turkmenistan, or some of the other places in the 1040 window, they literally are down the street. And just a quick, I'll add on to what you say, and then I'm going to give you the last word, kind of the last word. The other thing we run into is that when you say, well, yeah, they're down there, I don't know how to walk down there and strike up a conversation. I don't know how to share the gospel with an Afghani. Okay, fine. But you do know how to do business with the Afghan. And in that context, when they begin to see Jesus in us, is when they began to ask questions. And that to me still is as biblical as the day is long, for most people to be ready to give an explanation, Peter says, of the hope that is within us. Well, that implies that you're being asked,
Yeah.
what's different about you? Why are you joyful in hard times? Why are you honest? Why are you nice to me? I mean, that's to me the beauty of it. All right, so Bob, we're going to come in for a landing. Final word of wisdom, word of exhortation, word of encouragement to our audience, literally around the world. And you've already said get in the game many times, so I'm not going to give you that one.
Yeah.
You got to come up with something else.
Yeah.
What would you say to this group as sort of your parting shot?
Yeah, I think there's two things that come to mind for me when I think of just really taking BAM to the next level, Mike. I did say, everybody's got to be part of this, and I'll set that one aside. But there's two other things. One is we've got to find a way to deploy capital. We've got to find a way, what I would encourage investors who are out there today, you hit the nail on the head. It doesn't have to be $500,000 that you're investing. I mean, I told you the story about the young man in Tanzania with a $10,000 investment. These opportunities are everywhere, and we can help with that with TriVenture. We've launched a lot of businesses through TriVenture that would have never been launched any other way. I really believe that, and I really believe that that's why God had us do that. And so it's the deployment of capital. So I think that's got to be something that's really, really on the top of mind for investors out there. We can help you with that, and we're looking for excellent businesses that match up with where your heart is. So that's one thing. The second is, I think we've got to get the young people into this. We've got to have a succession plan. You and I aren't going to be doing this forever, and other men and women like us. We've got to get the young people that say, you know what, this is beautiful. I've been introduced to business's mission at a young age. There is a third path. I don't have to go the secular route. I don't have to go back to seminary. I can take my gifts to the people anywhere in the world for the kingdom. And so I would just say for young people, we've got to pass the baton. We've got to get them into the game with us, but then more importantly, hand the baton off to them so they can run with it. Because I do think that succession plan right now is really going to be critical for the momentum that we're building right now, but really to take it to the next level. And I think young men and women are going to be able to do that. So I just, if you're out there, get a hold of us, because we really want you to be part of this. It's exciting, and to be able to do it at the beginning of your career rather than towards the end is just an amazing blessing. Take advantage of it.
Yeah. Well said, Bob. Thanks so much. And for our listeners, all the contact information, the websites, and so forth for IBEC Ventures, for Third Path Initiative, for TriVenture, for our financial partner, Legacy Generational Fund, all of this will be in the show notes. Because Bob, when you say, "Hey, reach out to us," this is how you reach out to us.
Absolutely.
And I know Bob takes more calls than any human being I know. There are times when we laugh. Jonathan and I will laugh. Said, "Is this man never not on the phone?"
No.
And I think Karen, his wife, would say, "Not much."
No.
But Bob, I know you love to be connected, and you love to have people reach out to you, and you mean it when you say that. So all of this will be there. Again, Bob, thanks for being with us. Appreciate you as a brother and a friend and a co-laborer in Christ.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Mike. Great to be here. God bless you.
Fantastic.